And then the last one, which gets into more formalizing the measurement process and really hitting home who's counting dots, or who's counting, just tick marks on the ruler and who's counting the span of those units, is you have students draw segments that are progressively shorter. And if they're counting the 0 as a length, then you'll see that as they get shorter and shorter, what will happen is when they draw a 2-inch segment, they'll actually be drawing a 1-inch segment because they're using 2 tick marks. And so what will happen then is students will kind of self-correct and find out that, oh, wow, when I got to this 1 inch, then I didn't have any length. I'm just making like a dot. And so it's a way to kind of get them to proceduralize the formal measurement with the standard unit of measure without just kind of telling them, well, you don't count the tick mark, you count the span. They will discover this by going through the level 8 activity here. So this is a way to kind of remediate measurement for students who may be struggling when they come to you in second grade, because I wanted to go through that before we go through the second grade standards, because there's a whole lot going on with estimating and measuring lengths in second grade. So let's look at that for the rest of the session. So these 4 standards. Now remember, when we started with kindergarten, we didn't have very much at all in this area. We have 4 standards in second grade just for measuring length. And there's 2 more that deal with addition and subtraction with length. We'll get to those in a moment. But these all fall under this measure and estimate lengths and standard units umbrella. And so I'm not going to read these standards to you, but you can see it's kind of pretty straightforward as far as how we need to teach it and which units are important. And then, what we need to do to help kids figure out how to compare 2 items with standard units. But if you think back to the remediation process we just talked about, if kids don't get up through that level 8, they can't begin to deal with these second grade measurement standards. They're going to get so confounded by these second grade measurement standards that they're not going to be able to meet them satisfactorily. So it's really important that you have kind of an assessment up front in second grade to deal with this progression of measurement to make sure that students have that fundamental understanding. So I wanted to share with you a few ideas about these 4 standards when you think about just teaching them overall, regardless of the 4. I have become an advocate of this cycle of estimate, measure, and then estimate. And really what it should say is, estimate one item, measure that item, and then estimate a different item. Because what we want kids to get to is we don't want the estimations to just be some wild guess. We want it to really be based on something. And so, for instance, you might have, a Post-it note pad on your desk, and they're going to estimate that first. How many inches long do you think that Post-it note pad is? Oh, I think it's 17 centimeters. So then you're going to measure it, and you're going to see that, oh, wow, maybe it's not 17 centimeters. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. Now, based on my experience with that specific item, let's get to my notebook paper and see how tall or how wide do I think that is based on what I thought was 17 centimeters and what it actually turned out to be. And what that does, using that estimate, measure, estimate cycle, is it reinforces to kids that, first of all, things have a real estimate, or a real measure rather, and then secondly, my estimate needs to be grounded in something. And especially for measurement, kids need that grounding to start them off, so that when they make those estimates, it's not just this wild guessing game. And one way to do that also is to use personal benchmarks. And many of you probably do this already, where you have kids who they know that their thumb is so many centimeters across, or their pinky is so many inches tall, and that's a wonderful personal reference for kids to understand. And then you still want to reinforce to children, even though it's second grade and they've been doing this a couple years now, that measurement is a comparison, and that it's direct and it's indirect. And actually, when we use a ruler, it's actually an indirect measurement, because we're going to compare it to something else, and we're going to use the standard unit of measure as the way to compare it. And I'm not saying you need to give kids items and say, is this an indirect or direct measurement situation? I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying when you plan your teaching activities for students, you need to be sure that they include both of those. Now, I've included a web reference here that I wanted to just take a look at briefly. See if I can get it to come up nice. Let me pause the screen sharing for a moment. And if, here we go. So I came across, as I was, there we go. So here's our webpage. This is the link that was on the slide. I came across this K-5 Math Teaching Resources website, which has some stuff that I like and some stuff that I don't like. But when I was looking at second grade measurement data, I thought it really had some good activities. And if you scroll down here, you can see they've listed the Common Core standards for second grade measurement. And then they list some possible activities. And those include some PDFs that have some different suggestions on how to do the measurement data. So I just thought that was a good resource to point out. It might give you some fresh ideas for your second grade measurement data. Okay, so we're back at the slides. And so, you know, really for this part of second grade measurement, we need to always be sure that this estimation piece is a critical part of what we're asking children to do. So let's look then to the next set of standards. These are more second grade standards of measurement data. And now we're asking the students to relate addition and subtraction to length. And this is an effort to kind of embed some of that number sense development into the measurement, into the length measurement setting in particular. And so we're going to keep it to the same units, and we're going to keep our numbers within 100. And then we're also going to make sure that kids write an equation for this. So this helps reinforce that, you know, one way we can express lengths is with numbers, and one way we can express numbers is with missing number sentences. And so this is an effort to make this a little more coherent. Then the second one, which we start in second grade, is this whole idea that we're using a number line. And, you know, what I like about this standard is that it reinforces that the whole point of the number line is that it's equally spaced points, and it corresponds to whole numbers. And so we're going to use our sums and differences on this number line diagram. I wanted to share a couple ideas along those lines. So as I said before, this is a real effort to make these, you know, make these concepts coherent with the work that you're doing in number sets, which is two-digit addition and subtraction. And so doing that in a measurement setting, length measurement setting, the same units, is a nice extension of that. But I wanted to share a couple of ideas about number lines, because sometimes for some students that's very anti-intuitive. So I would definitely keep this idea of estimation in mind when we talk about the number line. I like to use adding machine tape, where you tape that up on the wall or on the whiteboard, and then kids have to estimate where certain values would be. You know, if this is my adding machine and it goes, if this is my measurement, tape measure, and it goes from 50 to 100, where would 72 be? And then you can fold that adding machine tape in half and get an exact point of where the midpoint is, and then have kids adjust their estimate based on what they now know. So it helps with that visualization aspect. It helps with that number line sense. It also helps with that sense that things are equally spaced. And so if I'm not thinking, if I clump all my numbers together around 100, if it's a 0 to 100, then I've got to reinforce that that's equally spaced relative to the other numbers too. So those two ideas as far as horizontal coherence and number line can help students learn these standards a little deeper. And then the next big concept, we're still on second grade, measurement and data standards. If you notice, there's a whole lot to do in second grade with respect to this, which is why we have to have that horizontal coherence. So we started telling time in first grade, but now we're going to make things happen with the nearest 5 minutes and use AM and PM. And then we're also going to introduce money. Now, money is a popular kind of topic for people to teach, and people get very upset if kids can't count change, whatever. The Common Core standards took a very explicit effort to not introduce money until second grade. You may want to do some other stuff with money, with coin recognition and whatnot in earlier grades. But just know that, kids who transfer in or teachers in the building, if they're not consistent, this may be something where you have to start from scratch. So we have a couple things in terms of, embedded in this is the coin identification. So if your children don't know how to identify the coins yet, that's something you'll have to provide a little remediation on. But also the use of the two money symbols. And so those are some kind of explicit teachings you may have to do. But another couple things that you can do, especially if you're thinking about solving word problems with money or time, is the use of the number line. Where you count up to make change, or you count up to combine the price of things, and also for elapsed time. Now we're just telling time, but you can embed some kind of little, elapsed time scenarios in there to help kids understand AM and PM, those kind of things. But the other thing that I would really recommend, and I found this on one of the tasks on the Illustrated Mathematics website, is to use actual photos of clocks and money. For years and years I heard teachers complain that they had to teach kids kind of, how to see the coins and then how to identify them on a page. And I just found these two pictures very quickly as I was preparing for this webinar. And what better way to teach about clocks, about time and money than to actually have a picture of it. And so, kids can then use what they know about, the shape of how big the coins are and what the faces look like to help count those. The other thing then, this Inside Mathematics website also has some resources, and I'll share that with you here real quick as far as helping with second grade. Second grade in general, but specifically this one, second grade time and money. So let me get this to share nicely.